Bitcoin represents, a liquid, fungible, synthetic asset that you can use to build a balance sheet. If you're a family, a company, a country, you can move it anywhere, right? It doesn't degrade, right? The maintenance cost is lower than any other form of asset. And if you know that you're building on a firm foundation, you can look out 100 years or 1,000 years. And, that's a profound idea. I think of Bitcoin as it's digital energy, and it's also digital money, and it's digital property, and it reflects such a profound new idea that unless you spend 10 or 100 hours or more, and unless you have a need to embrace a new idea, you wouldn't really appreciate it and understand it. So if someone just pokes you and says, what's your opinion of it? And you spend half an hour thinking about it, normally you've got a kind of ignorant reaction based upon imperfect models and imperfect understanding. And it's only when you get to the point in your life when you need it and you need to understand it, or you have an inspirational experience that forces you to dig a bit deeper, do you start to form a more nuanced view. I mean, I think the biggest problem that we face as a civilization is conservation of energy. How do I conserve energy over time? And that's the inflation and the degradation problem. A secondary issue is how do you move energy through space, the transactional problem. That's kind of tactical, but the strategic issue is what's the half-life of your energy, right? If I give you food in a container and it's good for like a day, well, you got to eat it in a day. How do you store food for a decade? It's a challenge, right? And if I give you energy and the half-life of the energy is 3 years, then you can only plan with a 3-year time horizon. I think when you have energy in the form of money, right? Money is monetary energy, it's economic energy. So if I have economic energy and I'm storing it in a fiat currency that's hyperinflating, that means that the half-life of the energy is 1 year. If the currency is inflating at the rate of 7% a year, the half-life of the energy is 10 years. If I put that money into gold and gold's inflating at 2% a year, the half-life of the energy is 35 years. If I put the money into a building and the building has a useful life of 100 years, that's long. I mean, no building will probably last 100 years without serious maintenance, but let's just plug it in just for grins. Well, so the half-life of the energy is 50 years. In 100 years, the building's gone. So what if I wanted the half-life of the energy to be 1,000 years or 10,000 years? How do I make something last forever? That fundamentally, the real issue with the human race is how do I make something last forever? How do I achieve immortal life? If I want something to circle the globe forever, I have to put it in orbit. If I get it almost in orbit, it crashes to Earth, right? Yeah. Almost in orbit is not in orbit. If I get it in orbit, it'll circulate a circle around the world forever. But if I get it out of orbit, if I can reach escape velocity, it'll circle the sun forever. And maybe if I beat the sun's escape velocity, it'll circle, a galaxy forever. So how do I conserve energy or how do I propagate energy forever? And Bitcoin is a solution to this problem. Paper money isn't a solution to the problem. Land and buildings aren't really a good solution. Gold isn't a good solution. And so I do think it's the idea that you can capture a set of energy and hold it forever, right, is a profound idea. And you can, it's not so different than saying, what if I wanted to build a city and I told you that the rock you're building the city on was only going to sink at 1 foot a decade? Okay, well, if Venice was sinking at 1 foot a decade, where does that leave us? Now, 1 foot, 100 years is still a bit of a problem. I mean, you lose 2 or 3 feet over 300 years and you're underwater in some places. So I really need something that's not going to deflect. It's not going to move, not 1 inch in 100 years, right? And if we look at things that advance the human race, steel's an example of a low deflection form of metallic energy. The difference between building a building with steel and building a building with clay or wood, right? Or, fill in the blank, right? Some other material, it's pretty profound. And building a city on granite or schist versus sand or swampland is pretty profound. Building an economic system, a company, a country, an institution on Bitcoin, as opposed to on Venezuelan bolivars, right? How long is your company going to last on a currency which is hyperinflating, right? Not 5 years. How long will your company last built on a currency like the US dollar? You said the US dollar lost 99.5% of its value over 80 years. That doesn't work as a foundation, as a balance sheet. And so Bitcoin represents, a liquid, fungible, synthetic asset that you can use to build a balance sheet. If you're a family, a company, a country, you can move it anywhere, right? It doesn't degrade, right? The maintenance cost is lower than any other form of asset. And if you know that you're building on a firm foundation, you can look out 100 years or 1,000 years. And, that's a profound idea. If you roll the clock back 120 years and you think about the impact of electricity in the society, and you went to everybody that operated a town or a hotel or a building or a ship, and you said, this electricity is really going to have a profound impact on your life. People would have thought, I don't, how do I think about this, right? Is electricity a good thing or a bad thing? Well, will it burn my house down? Will it shock me? Right? A lot of people die, right? Fires take place. What happens if you have electrical fire on a ship? Big problem, right? So it probably took people 30 years, 40 years before they had absorbed what electricity meant. And you're like, well, I don't want it because it'll be regulated. Well, is regulation of electricity a bad thing or a good thing? It's a thing, right? I mean, you probably can't roll out electricity throughout a city without some regulation. To get a certificate of occupancy on a building, you need to pass a fire inspection, and part of the fire inspection is make sure that the electric wiring is not going to burn the house down. And so electricity was it's a profound idea, how I move energy efficiently, right? Over wires, over copper. And the human race hasn't really had the ability to transform energy into digital form. And once you do it, you realize that it's profound impact on the concept of property. What if I could have digital property? What is property? Property is low frequency money. What is money? Mid-frequency energy. If I have $1 billion and hold it for 30 years, it's digital property. If I could put it in a building, then it's physical property. I could put it into Bitcoin, then it's digital property. What if I speed it up a bit and I pay for your coffee with it? Now it's like digital money. What if I speed it up a lot and I do 100,000 transactions a minute with it? That's digital energy, right? What's the difference, right? They're just different frequencies, vibration frequency, right, of energy moving through a medium. And the world doesn't quite understand that yet, and you can't blame everybody for not quite understanding that. The human race had hundreds of thousands of years to figure out fire, right? How long did we spend trying to figure out bronze, iron, and steel? A while. So the human race is moving forward through channeling energy. Bitcoin's just the latest chapter in that story. It's what if I could take $1 billion worth of electricity and put it in the palm of my hand send it anywhere on Earth, store it for 100 years and not lose any of it. That's a pretty profound idea.